What? Why are you shaking your head?
You're welcome.
All right. The CFF All Access live stream is live tonight. And I'll tell you what, I could not be more excited. I was just telling the boys before the show, my wife officially broke her foot on Friday. My son got stitches last Sunday in his foot. So I'm just excited to get a little reprieve from like being everything, being mom, dad, everything for the last 48 hours. So I'm here just talking ball. Hopefully my head will be clear. Proton, JD, how are you guys doing? Better than me?
Comparatively, yeah. I'd say almost everybody listening to this show is doing better than you, Mr. Chevalier. Yeah. Fortunately, all my limbs are intact. Still out there playing softball. As I mentioned, you guys, 15 from the last 15. It's playoffs. Wood bat at the Pacific Beach Recreation Center, repping the PB Pub like we always do. The best softball team, the best bar, Pacific Beach, San Diego. So, yeah, I'm pretty excited about it. But, hey, dude, as always with college football, like the NFL thinks it's all wild. Like, oh, my God, Isaiah Pacheco, he broke his fibula and all these things. Like, dude, we get 15 of those a week, all right? Relax, NFL people. The world is not falling. It happens all the time. We're used to this. So act like you've been there before. Let's go show the NFL fans how it's done.
Yeah, exactly. JD, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. As always, week 3 on the show for me. I'm feeling good. I think we're getting stronger by the minutes. And we're here, Josh. And Josh is struggling. We got you. Isn't that right, Proton?
Picking me up.
That's right. It's a team here on the CFF All Access podcast. And when Josh and or his wife or children are down, we pick them up. So that's why we're here to crank out some waiver wire goodness.
I love it. And hey, like the other thing that gets us going is comments in the chat. We love to interact with you guys. And so, man, hit up the questions. We will hit them as we get going. I wanted to ask you guys, we're going to get right into content. Week 3, right? We're 3 weeks in the book. We're on to week 4 now. And so we have a little bit of data behind us. Is there any big observations that you guys have, a few weeks into the season? We're a quarter of the season done almost. What big observations you guys have coming into week 4?
As far as big observations, gosh, I would say we've talked about it before a couple times. Pitt is humming and moving at, frankly, a breakneck pace. I think we're seeing that injuries and poor performance are affecting, the teams up and down the dial. Specifically Utah. All right. So anything we were thinking about in terms of the Utah passing game, that has now been eradicated. I watched Isaac Wilson again, Elite 11. There it is. Saw him throw during his day one. And while Danny O'Neal, according to my friend JT O'Sullivan, had one of the worst day one performances of all time, I think Isaac Wilson is my all-time number one worst day one passing performances. I have no faith on him delivering the ball, frankly. And then on the other side, like, here comes Alex Orji. All right, it's time. Michigan, this is not the Michigan of 2023. Expecting them to be the Michigan of 2023 was probably a little bit too much. Even ranking them in the top 15 was probably a little bit erroneous. But that's how we learn, and that's how we figure these things out. And I'm excited. It won't happen this week, but occasionally I want to see Miami against somebody who isn't Florida's defense or an FCS, or this week they got South Florida. Like, all right, South Florida was pretty good against Alabama, but we'll see. Hopefully South Florida can do something against Miami, because that offense ain't stopping. We now have Cam Ward as the Heisman favorite. Read that again. Cam Ward's the Heisman favorite.
Crazy.
Here we are. So I love college football. I love the randomness of it. And I'm here for all the madness.
Yeah, I want to talk about that USC Michigan game later in the show. Get you all's opinion on that spread and just your thoughts on that overall game, because I think that's going to be an interesting one with the current spread. So JD, overall thoughts first 3 weeks of the season.
think the macro one that I'm taking away is the continuation of last year's rules with the clock changes and the games moving faster. I think I took a while to make an adjustment on that last year, and I think there's even more of an adjustment with the helmet communications and some teams really opting to just kind of slow the game down. So trying to get a read on teams, we have a small sample size of data, and sometimes you're playing from behind, playing from ahead. You're playing some non-conference teams. Sometimes it's hard to trust the data because there's certain teams that are just going to sit on you, man. They get a lead like Penn State with West Virginia. They're just going to sit on the ball, wait until it's won every play, and then explosive or two. Other than that, they're just sitting on the ball. They know they're better than you. So that's one thing I'm really adjusting. The pace of the college game has changed. Even when you get these studs in your lineup, you're trusting the volume. If the team only has 6 possessions and they're playing from behind, it's tough to trust some of these stud running backs. So that's always been true, but just even more so making adjustments for something that's a little different this season.
Phenomenal point. And frankly, yeah, it's absolutely one of those things that should have been mentioned. I'm just ashamed that I didn't say it. Well done, JD. But there's no way to get around it. Do you see in some teams who have 3 possessions and a half now, depending on the pacing and how good the other team is at ball control? Like, are you kidding me? We were getting 11, 12 drives a game, right as rain in the previous system. Now, we're looking at maybe 8 or 9 sometimes. That is just, it's more than I think I had even expected. I feel like it's even more than last year when the changes were implemented.
Yeah, that's such a good point. I wonder when we get to the end of this year, if we'll look at it and just see the overall CFF scores each week and overall points for teams are going to be down year over year, and just see like what is the impact of this on players. I think that's a great point. I mean, even the fact that a lot of these good offenses aren't hiking the ball till 15 seconds or less because they can communicate with the OCs with the player. I think that's a really good point. Bobby over here said he bought Wi-Fi on his flight just to tune in to hear some of the best people in the business. Shout out to us.
Love
Bobby.
you, Bobby. Love
Thank you, sir.
Fans. Yeah, my brother. That's how you get a shout out to start the show there, Bobby.
That makes my week for sure. Bobby, I don't know if you heard at the beginning, but had a rough weekend. So I appreciate that. Hey, we're going to take a quick break, and then I'm going to come back with a few observations myself, and then we'll get right into waiver wire talk. All right. So I think my big observation is that basically through 3 weeks, like CFF is going to CFF. And the fact that, all right, let's look at this. John Mateer is the QB1. And I think his ADP was like round 20 in our best ball drafts in the offseason. And then you got at wide receiver, you got Nick Nash, who I think he's like round 24, round 25 as the CFF wide receiver 1.
Yeah.
I mean, averaging 40 points a game, which is just absurd. And so it's like we spend all this time in the offseason. And this is why I think CFF is so much better than NFL, is that these guys are coming in, and guys that we're drafting at the end of drafts. You wouldn't even draft them in an NFL redraft league, and they are league winners. So I think this is why we love the sport, right? And waiver wire is such a big deal. Have you guys noticed that about any other players that you're like, wow, this guy was a late round pick and now he's like a key contributor to winning teams?
Yeah, the number 2 wide receiver behind Nick Nash, Ty Felton. I mean, case in point right there. And with him, it's funny, 2 years ago at the Combine, I spoke with Raheem Jarrett. I think I might have mentioned this last week, but I spoke with Raheem Jarrett and asked him my favorite question, which is who's next in the Maryland wide receiver room? Who's the next one to be an NFL caliber wideout out of there? And this is 2 years ago, 2022. So like Ty Felton was off the radar completely here. And he said, without a doubt, it's Ty Felton. He's like, Ty Felton has it. He's going to be, you just give him some time, he's going to develop. And here we are right now. That Maryland offense doing what is traditionally done. They throw the ball. And I've watched quite a bit of Billy Edwards, and he is, without a doubt in my mind, I've seen Talia Tagovailoa plenty of times. He's better than Talia. And he's running that offense more crisp. Felton and Prather both look awesome. I mean, that's what they do. They certainly don't run the ball. We know that. Fading Roman Hemby, player props All-American. So, pretty excited about Ty Felton, too.
Yeah, that's good. JD, you got anybody that sticks out to you?
Just a few guys who like seem interesting and wasn't really sure whether to fully trust. Like Mateer was a good one. You know, guys like Devin Dampier. It's like you can highlight so many guys who the system seems pretty good, but you have no idea whether or not you can trust the player. And sometimes they come out looking like DeQuan Finn. Okay, you don't care how fast Baylor's offense is going to operate. Looks like Finn's going to ride the bench even if he is healthy. And then sometimes they end up being Gio Lopez. I know he's played 2 terrible defenses, but John Mateer, Devin Dampier, these guys, it's just tough. You have to make some really quick adjustments. Like, was I totally wrong on this guy? Is it just going to take a week or 2 for the scheme to develop? And when they come out just on fire, and then you match that with the scheme that all the research shows you in the offseason, you can adjust your priors pretty quickly.
Yeah. Going through some running backs too. Desmond Reed, tippity top of the list for the running backs and that were, waiver wire guys. Caleb Johnson, it was him or LaShawn Williams. Which one's going to be? He came out on top. Definitely Henry Parrish has to be mentioned. Ole Miss. Who knew? He wasn't. I mean, we were getting famous Amos. You know, we were obviously getting some Logan Diggs thrown in there. Obviously, Ulysses S. Bentley. Stonewall Jackson was probably in there. Who knows? I mean, everybody was getting drafted except for Henry Parrish. And then Anthony Tyus with Ohio, with Richard Hunt having that big, end of the season surge. Anthony Tyus comes in and takes that job and is the number 10 running back.
Yeah, I think that's such a great point. And I think one of the other things that sticks out to me this year, I think, more than other years even, is the way that this playoff system might be affecting the way that really good teams are using their top players. For example, Texas, right? Like, they're just going to sit Jadon Blue for the next 2 weeks. He could play, but because they need him long-term in the season, I think you've seen it with other players. Like Texas is a good example. I think Georgia's another one. But these teams that are planning on playing the playoffs, so they're going to play 17 games. They're essentially like treating this like a preseason. And I think in CFF, I think we're feeling that effect a little bit. Miami's the same way. Damian Martinez this last week got 3 carries against Ball State because they just blew him out so quickly. And they didn't need him. And so that's an interesting part to me that I don't know how to quantify that yet, but it seems like it's making it a big deal, at least at these schools that are better, if that makes sense. Have you guys noticed that at all too, or is that just me?
Oh yeah, Robin Leonard was out at halftime. For Notre Dame, they were up 42-0 on Purdue, and they were just like, all right, this is obvious that this team is helpless. You know what this is? It's load management. It's literally what it is. You saw it before with the season before with Jahmyr Gibbs, where the first 3-4 games before they hit SEC play, less than 10 carries each of those games. Saban knew he wasn't messing around with Gibbs. He's like, he's sub 200 pounds, but he's electric. He saw it happen with Waddle before. He's like, all right, we don't need to have anybody kind of put themselves into harm's way, and you're seeing that. And who's to blame them? But you do have to factor that into your caps of these lopsided non-con games that we see.
Yeah, I think that's good. JD, you have any thoughts on this topic?
Yeah, it just it's always been something I've tried to factor into my capping more than my opponents, is trying to find like games that aren't blowouts. Okay, so a high total and a lower spread, but now more so than ever, man, just so many good guys burning you, and they might not even have a bad week, but if they're playing 1.5, unless they're running for 3 touchdowns like Riley Leonard, sometimes you see competitive non-conference games on a person's schedule and you say, oh, they have a tougher schedule this year. And sometimes that means actually maybe they might play the whole game instead of sitting a half or just sitting out the whole game entirely. So yeah, I absolutely think it has to be mentioned as something that's changing in the sport, and we'll likely see more of it every year.
Yeah, no, that's really good. Yeah. Speaking of all this, I want to get into our waiver wires because, again, I think the waiver wire is as relevant as ever with the transfer portal and kind of this new season that we're in of college football. And so there's lots of options this week getting into it. Let's do this. I want to get I'll go with Shane's question first. Bobby, I see your question, and we'll get to that a little bit later. Maybe we'll have a little props talk scenario that we can share with you. So, but with Shane, who would you guys prioritize first between Sumo and Billy Lucas? So Sumo from Kentucky, obviously, and then Billy Lucas from Liberty. Eric, I'll let you answer this first, and then JD, you can comment as well. Who are you prioritizing this week?
Geez, I mean, out of these guys that we're looking, that Jojo Machas, I'm sorry, Shane. My bad. Thing is with Sumo is we know that he's going to get those carries, right? That's a lock. I actually put him into on my props plays to be an over 13.5 carries, and like that was just math that was going to happen against Georgia because we knew that Vandegrift, and I think that'll probably be the case again. I don't trust Vandegrift. They're not going to try to let him throw the ball too much. Like, that's not happening. He was an under as well with his passing yards. He was at 130.5. He opened. He only got to like 116, 118. I think you see a similar script. I don't think, from what I understand, I don't think we're going to see Traynham back this week. So I just think with the load I know that Sumo is going to get and the advantage they'll have on the line, I kind of leaning towards Sumo.
Yeah, that's good. What about you, JD?
I'm kind of prioritizing Billy Lucas this week. I'm thinking he might be the top pickup or one of the top pickups. There's a lot of volatility, so I think Sumo's a lot safer, and I do think Sumo's a good option as well. Both these guys came in and had 20 carries last week, but hearing what Chadwell said about Cooley, he said something like it's not looking good, and he used it in the same sentence as another guy on the team who he said is going to be out for the year. Basically said Cooley also isn't looking good. You could take that a few ways. Does that mean he's not looking good for this week or for the season? I don't know. But Liberty offense has a lot to figure out. At the end of the day, we have a pretty good track record that they're going to score points and they're going to be playing in the Conference USA. And if I can get, 4 or 5 weeks of Billy Lucas being the RB1 for a team that's not really throwing the ball much at all right now, I think there's like a really high upside with Billy Lucas. I think he could basically be your Quentin Cooley who was going in the first 5 rounds of some drafts. So higher volatility, I think both are great plays. And yeah, I'm not the highest chip Traynham guy. I was in the past, but I haven't seen it in the last couple of years. And if Demi Sumo's getting 20 carries against Georgia and looking pretty good, and that offensive line was one that really underperformed the last few years. They made some changes there at Kentucky. And going into the year, I thought, well, if the offensive line stinks and they don't have Ray Davis, why would I be interested in Chip? But the offensive line has been great, and they were able to get a little push against Georgia. Their top 40 in line yard stuff rate, 17th in front 7 havoc, looking a lot better. So yeah, I agree with Roton. They're going to give Demi Sumo all he can handle.
Yeah, that's so fascinating. And again, going into the year, we're like, man, Demi Sumo, he looks pretty jag back at North Carolina State, and then he comes here and obviously he's doing
the magic of the portal, reborn all of a sudden.
I know. So staying on the theme of Billy Lucas, JoJo in here 3 hours early. Dude said, "I'm thirsty," and he had a question. So we need to honor this question. Is Billy Lucas the top ad at running back? He also lists other people that are available in his league. So Hankerson from Oregon State, Ontario Brown, and then from Northern Illinois, Jam Miller from Alabama, and then Sanders. I think I'm blanking on.
I think Eli Sanders from New Mexico, maybe.
Okay, Eli Sanders from New Mexico are all available. So would you guys take Billy Lucas over any of these other guys, Hankerson, Sanders, Brown, or Miller?
Hankerson's splitting carries with Jam. I like, don't get me wrong, I like the Hanka Jam combo. Who doesn't love Hanka Jam? But, the other side of that is Jam Miller is over here too. So it's like Jam Miller's pretty attractive. He seems to be getting those Alabama carries. I mean, I obviously I like Justin Haynes too, but it looks like DeBoer seems to trust Miller. So you have to respect that the potency of the Alabama offense. So if I had to drop one, in order, I would probably probably lean Jam Miller out of that foursome. I would take Lucas over Hankerson without a doubt. Ontario Brown is in the 23rd ranked, NIU's backfield, and they're like lean on that defense. Thomas Hammock is a running back and everything. You have to hold on to him, but I'd probably take Lucas over Hankerson.
That's good. JD?
Yeah, I think Ontario Brown shouldn't really be an ad. He should be rostered everywhere at 33.5 points against Notre Dame.
Yeah, Jam too, right? Like all these guys. What is this league?
Yeah, and I don't really view.
Chocho, can we join?
Yeah,
right.
I'm confused.
I think maybe Jam too. Billy Lucas, again, high volatility. I could easily see him being the RB2 here out of this group, but yeah, I think Jam Miller, Lucas, and Brown should be rostered everywhere. I'd put Brown 1. I guess Lucas 2, Jam Miller 3, but yeah, close on the 2 and 3. Hankerson and Sanders, whatever. They're fringe guys.
Yeah, I like all of those. I'm with you guys. Yeah, probably around the middle of those lists behind Brown and Miller for the same reasons you guys said. So don't have anything different there. We're going to start going down the list here, though, of our QBs and then running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends on our waiver wire options, our preferred options this week. So, JD, we'll start with you. You want to get your top QB waiver wire ad of the week?
Yeah, sorry, I took the Proton approach this week. I just had a lot of guys I was looking at and I listed them.
Do that. I like the lot of guides approach.
So let's do it. And if you won, of course, let's re-mention him. Alan Bowman, you'd be remiss if you didn't mention Alan Bowman. The guy's 12% owned. He's averaging over 30 fantasy points per game, and he has 3 really good wide receivers to throw to. And we all know that it's a very experienced offense, and they're going to move fast, and it's Mike Gundy. So Alan Bowman. Other than that, Emmett Brown on San Jose State, that offense is throwing the ball, chucking the ball, averaging 9.8 yards per attempt. They're throwing it downfield. I like that. And the defense might get taken advantage of in Mountain West play. So could be a shootout team. Tyler Huff, Josh mentioned him last week. I thought it was a great call. 7% owned. Jacksonville State. Again, we already know Rich Rod's going to run the crap out of his QB, and they're going to run plays. And right now the defense looks way worse than last year. So Tyler Huff is kind of just like a freebie guy who, honestly, I might start a few weeks here and there. Beltcamp at Western Kentucky. Yeah, he's an upgrade over Finley. I feel pretty confident saying that. He looks great. He can run the ball.
Comedy
we saw
hour
him in
over
the
here.
bowl game. We barely seen him, and when we've seen him, he looks tremendous and looks like a great CFF guy. And last but not least, we're gonna get a little bit off the path. Bert Emanuel has the upside to be a top 5 QB in fantasy. Who knows if he's gonna play? But he's finally on the injury report as questionable, and Joey Labus might average like 5 interceptions this year. So I don't think he can hold that job for super long. So if you have a spot and you need a quarterback, or you just want some high upside from action, I think he could be rostered if you have the space.
Joey Labus to the bone. Yeah, he's in rough shape. That's a great call with Emmanuel. Emmanuel's definitely fallen under the radar. So well done there. Other than the guys that my friend JD articulated, obviously Caden Beltcamp is on everyone's. I would think he's pretty much the one this week, the nominal one. From a dynasty perspective, let's not forget about the net Marcel Reed, Marcel Marceau. We haven't had a good Marcel in a while, first off. Like that in itself has roster ability value. But 65% completion rate, right? 2 TDs, but 83 rushing yards in a TD.
Yes.
In Florida. All right. We're getting a little bit of everything. Again, speaking of injuries, we don't know what we're getting out of Connor Wake. We don't know when he's coming back, right? So, that looks like a pretty good long-term play. He's going to be the guy. It's his show. So, all right, rock and roll Colin Klein's offense, and maybe you can run a little bit. Hank the Tank Brown, 17 for 25, 235, and 4 touchdowns. Like, everybody's waiting to see what happens, for this, this year 2 Hugh Freeze offense. Like, all right, this is going to take hold. You have a great glimpse of Peyton Thorne in week 1, which quickly faded, and I mean quickly faded in week 2. But, here we are with Brown, and he's a freshman. From a dynasty perspective, you could do a heck of a lot worse. I'm sure if you're sitting there at 1 and 2 and you're burning a roster spot on a senior that's doing nothing for you, I would prioritize Frank Brown Hank. There's so many Anks angst here on the show, I would take a look at him. If you're in a pinch in deep leagues, Keon Jenkins for FIU. I mean, he threw for 290 and 3 touchdowns, albeit 3 interceptions. But, that really doesn't ding you too much in fantasy. You typically only get 2 points, maybe sometimes 1. But playing Monmouth this week, Louisiana Tech the next, all right, if you need somebody to speculate with and you're in a tough spot in a short, deep league, well, okay, rock and roll. Obligatory Alex Orgy is starting from Michigan reference. Here we are. It's a college fantasy podcast. It's what we do here. And I think that pretty much wraps it. CJ Bailey, obviously, we know that Grayson McCall went down. CJ Bailey was pretty well publicized in the preseason at 14%. And you could go and grab him.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really interesting one, the CJ Bailey. Marcel Reed is interesting too with, Texas A&M. What we know Colin Klein has wanted to do in the past when he's at Kansas State, run the ball with the quarterback, and you see Marcel Reed get 83 yards rushing. It's not that Wegman is a statue back there, but he's probably not going to be putting up 83 yards rushing anytime soon. So it could be argued that Marcel Reed's a better fit for that system. And so therefore maybe just a better, guy for Colin Klein to build his offense around in the future. Is that kind of what you're thinking, Froton, with suggesting him? Or
yeah, I'm here. I mean, depending on the reports, I'd be interested to hear what JD, has read into, or if anything at all. But I'm hearing Wegman, this might be a multiple week thing, and if that's the case, and you're going to have Texas A&M chasing or being in a position where they're going to have to throw or create plays, well, Marcel Reed can break the pocket pretty effectively. I mean, he's fast. He's a little bit on the thin side. He can get out there and create in space, and that's something that we want, especially in 4-point passing touchdown leagues. You can have more value in that format than 6, but I think that's pretty much to be expected. I mean, I guess I'm kind of curious what JD thinks about that situation and what he's heard about Wegman.
I definitely noticed how weird it was that they kept downgrading him throughout the week, and then, okay, he's going to be game time decision. They're going to see how it looks in warmups. Wasn't listed on the injury report then. He goes out there and then immediately is ruled out. So if you're going to put on your tinfoil hat, maybe it's like, well, they really just want to bench him, but they're doing all this weird injury stuff that you don't really see happen, and it's very strange. But he tried to play, and the kid just can't play. I guess we have to start this Marcel Reed kid. Oops, there he goes, driving Florida crazy. So, yeah, and then the latest report saying how he's questioned and how they immediately said that early in the week. I mean, it seems like it's Marcel Reed's job to see if he's really good, and if he doesn't play well, then let's bring Connor back. All of a sudden, he's healthy.
Yeah, that's a great point, and I think that kind of leads us. Actually, let's take a quick break, and then I want to talk about Arch Manning next. All right, Arch Manning. I think this is not similar to Marcel Reed. That's crazy. But what are you guys doing with him this week? Let's say Quinn Ewers, they sit him for this week just to make sure he's healthy. Is Arch Manning a guy that you're picking up at all, prioritizing at all? Or are you just going to let somebody else kind of take him for 1 week, let him go ham, and then probably sit on the bench? Is he sitting on the bench? If he does what he did this last week, is there a chance that he usurps Quinn Ewers here? JD, I'll start with you, but what are your thoughts on Arch Manning in the waiver wire in particular, but then overall this season as well?
I actually think fairly highly of him on the waiver wire. I'm kind of not putting a lot of into him personally, just because if I'm in a dynasty league, he's already gone. If it's a competitive league, I don't have many bench spots to put him, and he might not win the job. So I'm not just personally putting a lot of priority into him, but I think you could make an argument he has the highest upside of any waiver wire ad this week. I won't get too far into my whole Quinn Ewers takes because I'm sure nobody wants to hear it. But yeah, I think there's a very, very, very real chance Arch Manning wins the job because he's a better quarterback. But I'll stop there before I get too spicy.
Well, that somebody's going to be rushing to the waiver wire out of whatever I don't care how big your league is, if he's on the waiver wire. So a lot of cases he isn't. Somebody is going to be marching there, wallet in hand, and dropping the entire thing. So it's what's the cost of acquisition going to be at this point for the return for an abdominal injury that, okay, I think it's very reasonable to expect that Quinn Ewers will sit this game, but, there's always that looming issue, and you could end up spending the vast majority of your free agent capital on a 1 week acquisition at quarterback. So I would tread lightly in terms of what I'm expecting for a full season. And if you can get them for essentially, if you're in line or in front, second, third, whatever your priority is in the queue, if you have a queue system, all right, you burn a waiver wire pick and you go back to the back and then you work your way up. Like, I can understand that philosophy, but if you're going to have to spend out of $1,000, $800, $750 in order to acquire him, then that's not. I think that's cost prohibitive.
Yeah. No, it's a really good point. I mean, it's one of those very high risk, very potentially high reward, right? But I think the risk does outweigh the probable reward here, right? Like, if you need a spot, one-time spot, and you just got, an extra bench spot, then you just need a spot start, then I guess you could do it. But I agree with you guys. But I figured, people would want to hear a take on Arch Manning, considering in some leagues he is available. I did in the 50-teamer league. I faced Kay and Chris K and Andrew Katz this week, and luckily for me,
dynamic duo.
Arch Manning. I know, man. Felt like I was getting tag teamed. I almost got whooped. Luckily, Arch Manning was on their bench, so I was fine.
Oh, boy. I might have to give him a call, man. QB.
I know.
Do you have any on the bench? JD? Josh? I think I sent out. I sent a personal text to everybody new in that league, being like, "Hey, QBs."
Yeah.
Can I interest you in Jeff Garcia?
Do you know I drafted Caden Hauser? Do you know that? So I actually tried to get into the ECU back then, and I lost. So well played, sir, on Jake Garcia. And yeah, I do have interest.
If this was a points per interception league, I would be undefeated.
Really? Wow, that's excellent. That's good to know. How does it stand now? You're 2-1?
I'm 1-2. We're not doing so hot, Proton.
Wow, dude. Former champion. Isn't it? Josh, if I'm not mistaken, you're ruling the roost right now.
For now.
Yeah, aren't you number one and aren't you 3-0 and leading in points?
Yeah.
3-0. Wow.
Yeah.
Josh atop the 50-teamer.
Look,
brother.
This has happened before, and then I get to the playoffs, and somehow I get like all the guys with like week 10 or week 11 buys, and so I'll pull like a.
Just get to the playoffs, and just whatever happens. But dude, congratulations.
Yeah, it's been fun. I mean, Ashton Genty helps for sure. So that'll help you. All right. We got a couple questions here.
2-1 for the record. 2-1 for the record. Just there.
Let's go. Getting
along. We'll see how it is.
We just need us all three in the playoffs. That's all we need. There's plenty of time for that.
I just want a ticket to the dance.
There we go. All right. Let's go to wide receiver. Well, we'll just go to this question first. Thoughts on Jeremy Bernard? Is he droppable in half PPR league or any league for that matter? And then he talks about the different wide receivers that are available on the waiver wire. This is 863 Kane. Shout out to our Miami Hurricane fan. So Deshaun Stribling is on the waiver wire. Giles Jackson, he has Boston already. Trell Harris, Harrison Wallace are some of the names on the waiver wire. So you taking Jeremy Bernard over any of those guys? Froton, we'll let you go first.
First off, great call by our friend JD Yankee on Trell Harris last week on this show. If I'm not mistaken, right? I believe JD brought him up. And if I'm not mistaken, I think Giles Jackson, I brought him up, courtesy of our friend Joe Arpeso, our boy Purple Rain, who is an excellent analyst doing great work. Gave us heads up, and hey, that cashed as well. So, hopefully you took our advice and you picked up one of them last week. That being said, I think you can make a pretty damn good case for Stribling. I mean, everybody knows Oklahoma State wants to go
Is Froton muted for anybody else?
Yeah, I was tripping out there.
Froton, you gotta unmute yourself,
and I
bro.
am flipping out.
I
Did
thought
you
it was
guys
my
just let me
computer.
go all that time? You let me just sit here and talk all that time. You guys are awful.
I definitely thought
Okay.
it was my computer. My bad. And then I tried to
I
unmute
did
you like
too.
20 times, and I was like, "Come on, let's
No,
go."
it's Froton. Froton hit the. I was moving my setup, so I went and did this. Okay,
Tom,
great.
producer, I got you. I'm gonna get that minute mark for you, so we can
Great.
edit that out.
London. Great. All right, sounds good. Stribling. I really like the idea of him because it looks like he's taken over Owens as the top outside wide receiver preference for Mike Gundy, for Alan Bowman over there at Oklahoma State. And we've seen literally for the last 2 decades of college fantasy football, roster after roster, championship after championship, won on the backs of outside receivers for the Oklahoma State Cowboys. So with Stribling looking like he's establishing himself as the alpha, which to Mike Bainbridge's credit, Mike Bainbridge had Stribling as an overplay, and my God, did he ever go over last week? For an Oklahoma State team, 27th in passing success rate, right? 40th in total QBR. If we're looking at the way that they call plays on passing downs, 124th in terms of run rate, right? So he's top 10. Again, top 40 in terms of standard down passing rate. So we've seen year after year, time after time, and now with Ollie Gordon being somewhat marginalized, not as effective. I mean, what did he have, 40 yards last game? Did he even crack 40, 30 yards? I don't think he did that. He had like 20 carries. So if that's the world we're living in, where they're stacking boxes, they're daring you to go to DeJon Stripling, well, go to DeJon Stripling, especially with Ryan Williams. I mean, dude, do you want to be on the opposite side of Ryan Williams right now? I don't.
No.
I don't.
That guy should be in my high school senior classes right now. Well, obviously not my high school, but
Golly,
he's insane. I cannot believe he keeps doing this.
He's so smooth. He glides. He has that ability to simply glide through his routes and look casually like he's running, but he is extending that lead while you see the other guy just trying to keep up, and like the flailing and the arms and stuff while they're trying to do it. But he just hits cruise control and he's gone. So electric. So that's really what's working against Bernard. Yeah, he had a great spring game, and we thought it was, but we have to give up on our priors. I like Bernard preseason just like everybody else. But geez, I mean, I'm probably looking at Stribling over him for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I mean, it is one of those things where Bernard seems like he did a little bit better this last week than in previous weeks, which was good to see. But yeah, I mean, Stribling is a guaranteed 8 targets a week. And so I think we finally saw his potential. JD, again, you are all over DeShaun Stribling in the offseason. Shout out to you. Because of you, I have a lot of best ball shares and on underdog of DeShaun Stribling and Ja'Cory Brooks. And so, man, Stribling, to get a guy that late was awesome. But he's been great. He was awesome this last week. And so I think it's hard not to think that he could be a guy. He could be that dominant outside wide receiver that we've seen. And JD, I'm parroting all of your points, but I think what you said in the offseason was,
JD, we've taken all the air out of the room on DeJon Stribling with you, and you are the one who has earned it the most. We're sorry.
Yeah. So you can parrot your own Rashad Owens take, but like that, he's a former tight end, and DeShaun Stribling is a guy that they see as an NFL guy. So, anyways, you want to talk about Stribling? We can give you the floor here.
Yeah, stop talking.
Not do Eminem.
I liked him first. I called dibs.
That's right.
That's my boy. No, yeah, just at some point in the offseason, I'm like, the outside or wide receivers, like, why not take a shot on this guy? And then, yeah, here Gundy calling him NFL wide receiver. We're going to get this guy drafted. He wants to be drafted. That's what we're here to do. We have the pieces to make it work. And it's like, yeah, Owens is a kind of bulky former tight end that just kind of stepped up because they didn't have anyone else. Froton, you said fantasy leagues are won on the backs of outside wide receivers. I just want to point out that some bankrolls in DFS have been lost on these guys because I was so confident in my Stribling takes week 1 and week 2 on Stribling. I'm playing every single lineup in DFS. The guy drops like 4 touchdowns. They're force feeding the ball. He hasn't like lost a route all year long, so he is a stud. And then in week 3, it's like, all right, well, I guess they're force feeding him. It's not working. Let's play some Owens here, and then that's when Stribling goes for 5,000 yards and a couple touchdowns. But man, that offense is clicking because Stribling's real good.
Yeah, that's awesome. Another Leland said, "Thank you for Darius Taylor. He won." He had a pretty sizable win on FanDuel because of some Darius Taylor takes that we had this weekend. So thank you again, JD, for that.
You guys had some pretty good props takes, didn't you, over there too, with your
Oh, yeah,
Crazy.
bro. We're 21-2.
That's right.
Over the last 2 weeks. Little
Look
91%.
boys. Let's go.
That to me.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, just a grassroots, small town bird lawyer operation over here. Just popping 21-2. No big deal.
Yeah, fun stuff.
It's my crew.
The boys. Yep.
It's my boys.
All right. Let's see. We got would you add Reed and drop Zeno or Shapen? Anybody got a take on this? I would probably drop one of those two for Reed, especially Shapen. I mean, going into SEC play, I think it's gonna be tough for him. But what about Zeno? Froton, would you drop Zeno for Reed?
Jeez, Alabama, Birmingham, iced Z. No. Yeah. UAB been disappointing in some fashion. Let's be honest. But he was good week 2. You don't expect him to be good. He's good. You expect him to be good. He isn't good. Like week 1, he's stunk. I don't know if I'm ready to hop off the Zeno train just yet. However, I do think with Mississippi State entering SEC play, I do think the talent level it's already kind of started to catch up with them a little bit. And Reed, I think, have just the overall talent level between those two teams. The disparity is pretty vast. Obviously on him, but I can get that as soon as JT does his thing and finish my point. But I think I would take Reed over Shapen, especially if this is a dynasty league of any or keeper league of any ilk. You'd want that upside as well. So yeah, that's where I go.
I like it. JD, your thoughts?
Yeah, really close, really close. Of course, it depends what my roster spots are and whatnot, but I'm not feeling great about Zeno or Shapen, and I agree with all the points made. So I would consider it for both. I'd probably pull the trigger on Shapen, especially if you're in need of an upside play. I mean, Reed, you might start this week. He plays Bowling Green, and I know Bowling Green almost beat Penn State, but I don't know. Marcel Green's probably going to have a pretty good game. I mean, you could pick him up and start. I don't know if you're starting one of the other guys this week.
Yeah, no, that's good. All right, got a couple other questions here that I want to get to. Let's see. We got, what are we doing with Sean Atkins? I mean, he's a pretty top 2-round pick. Are we cutting him loose? Are we keeping him? Is it too early in the season?
Well, with Atkins, he's a guy I don't have a lot of best ball shares or otherwise shares of. I might have one. Simply the fact that, he's sort of a boxy, white, undersized slot receiver.
Former walk-on, for sure.
Former walk-on, you watch him and it's like he's catching the ball square, like turning like Sweet Chuck in Police Academy. He kind of turns like this when I see him kind of do his thing. I'm not saying he's not dependable because he is, but like he's not explosive at all. Like that whole profile. You have to be in a nuclear offense to be great, and I just have looking at him in the place where he was drafted. He was getting drafted in the 3rd round, 12-team leagues. Second round, probably early on in the season when you're just kind of going more off numbers as opposed to having a little more developed feel. when he's probably, you know, like more like a right now, if this drafts, where's he going? You know, I know strength of opponent is obviously a factor, and then they'll get in the AAC, which is soft as a grape. But I just think if you're viewing him, he's on the edge of starting right now. Like you don't know if you can start him or if you can't. So that's a tough place to be with a wide receiver where every single spot counts because the other guy that you could be putting in a spot could be 25 points.
Yeah, that's a
And
great
he's a
point.
flex. And like these are flex spots you're moving him to. He's not a core wideout. So then he's competing against running backs now where you can depend on volume and project that. It's a tough spot to be. Sorry.
No, for sure. And yeah, it's surprising to me that Alex Golish hasn't put better wide receivers around Byron Brown. I mean, clearly he was missing some wide open guys against Bama, and he's struggled, I think, to pass the ball early on this year. But he also, like, those guys just aren't very good. When Sean Atkins is a former walk-on, not very athletic at all, is your leading wide receiver for an entire year, like, there's some issues. And I saw up close and personal when they played UTSA last year, and Sean Atkins was the only guy that could get any separation. And it doesn't look much better to me this year. But what are you doing, JD? Are you let me ask you this question, actually, because this is a good follow-up question that Shane had. He said, would you drop Atkins to add Stribling?
I wouldn't. Close, but no.
Yeah. Any thoughts on why you would?
I think I might. I might. That's right on the edge. Sure. I don't care that he was a second rounder. You know, it doesn't matter to me.
Yeah,
I just think close. It's very, very close. I probably have to. Yeah, I'd probably stick with Atkins. But that showed you he's edge of the roster now. Talking about dropping guys as opposed to being second rounder.
Yeah. I feel like both should be rostered still. Like, I don't know. I feel like if I'm dropping Sean Atkins, I'd have to feel really good about my team anyway. Like, I want him and Stribling on my team. Of course, it's hard to tell with the format. I actually took a closer look at Atkins because I have him on a few rosters. So I took a closer look at him today to decide what to do with him. I came away slightly more positive. Still, obviously, downgrading him from the start of the season. I mean, you have a huge blowout against an FCS team, which we already talked about blowouts. You faced Alabama in a game where he got 9 targets and was missed a few times. And then, okay, Southern Miss, you want more production. But again, I'm still not seeing another like if another receiver had emerged, I would be very, very nervous. You still, so the downside right now from last year is that you have 3 good running backs. Okay. Froton has talked about Joyner. Naquan Wright was the guy who got reps at Florida. And then Teron Keith is a really good player and a really good receiver, but he's still, in my opinion, a clear wide receiver one. Like, no one else has stepped up. When they do throw the ball, he's going to be the guy. And the game scripts have just been a little weird. And the thing is, they're still a little weird. Like, they have a few tough games coming up, and they play Miami this week, so maybe that means they throw more. But it's hard for me to feel like super safe because, yeah, I took a closer look. I felt better about him. And I said, okay, I'm starting him this week. Well, crap, he plays Florida, and then he has another kind of tough game, and then a bye week. So I don't know. Overall, I would prefer not to drop him because I still think there's going to be points in this year where he just kind of goes every game with 12 straight targets, and it's hard to find that on the waiver wire.
Yeah, that's good. Hey, let's take a quick break here, and then we'll finish up our wide receivers on the waiver wire. All right, I want to ask this question, then we can get into our individual wide receivers that we like. But Cade McDonald from Miami of Ohio or Floria from Kent State, who would you pick up this week on the waiver wire between those two?
I'll keep it quick, but Cade McDonald, 100%. He's good. I watched him against Cincinnati because obviously, you know, I'm a Sorsby guy. We all know. And I was very impressed by Cade McDonald. So, yeah, he's my guy.
Yeah, that's good. JD?
Yeah, Cade McDonald had him written down to talk about. 7% owned. He's got 20 targets in 2 games, 16 receptions. Former Power 4 player at Michigan State. Good, experienced 8th year to 9th year quarterback in Brett Gabbert. Offense that's a little slept on because Gabbert was out last year. I think there's a whole lot of buy signals for McDonald.
Yeah, for sure. We've seen this produce this position produced.
There's some better offenses in the MAC, I feel like, this year, just for whatever reason, in terms of, how these teams are formed. I think you could see them kind of have a little more excitement during match. Maybe I'm an optimist. Call me crazy.
No, I mean, definitely resurgence. I mean, just the new guys, right? Braden Sloan, Cade McDonald. I mean, those guys alone, Anthony Tyus, these are all guys that are making, the MAC better alone with just those new guys.
Class.
For sure. Yes. Which it's good to see because we needed that because that was brutal, I feel like, last year. So, all right, let's get in. Eric, we'll start with you. Who are some of your favorite wide receiver pickups this week on the waiver wire?
Well, Keshawn Johnson has to be respected, obviously, if he's at 16%. So, that's obviously on the high side, naturally. But, out of respect, he really has earned it. Once you ascend to the top of the mountain there at WKU, I want to be invested in you. Let's do this, especially with Veldkamp looking like a much more competent version of TJ Finley. You've got my attention. Next, Dante Wright, Temple. I think I mentioned him last week. Look, I know he is literally the definition of a retread. Post-type sleeper, throw all the baseball terms you want to on Dante Wright, but you have to respect the man. Like, he's electric. You get him in space. If you can figure it out, and Temple's throwing the ball all the time because one of their defense is absolutely horrific. And two, that's what they're set up to do. They're set up to do those quick, short throws. It's like, you're in Dante Wright land. 15 targets 2 weeks ago, 10 targets last week, 11 for 101 and 1, 9 for 99 and 1. I love all the alliteration. You got a carry last game. And if you look at what they're doing, they're coming into conference play. They got Utah State, great. Army, UConn coming up. Great. All right. Give me some Dante Wright shares at 8%. From a dynasty perspective, Caden Lee for Ole Miss. Hey, if I see somebody who is an underclassman, listed as a sophomore here, Caden Lee, breaking that Ole Miss rotation and getting a consistent 5 targets each game. I mean, he's catching all of them. It's 13 for 16. Travis Kevin Pat's 225 and 1. He got 2 carries for 18 yards. His role grew against Wake Forest, 5 catches, 83, 2 carries for 18. Like, this is what I want to see because those Ole Miss guys, they're all gone. They're all bye-bye after this year. Caden Lee isn't. Trent Walker at Oregon State. Got to give Trent Walker some love. Dude, he is an absolute target hog. I mean, I don't know what it is over there at Oregon State because, we didn't really have much to go on with Trent Walker coming in. He gets 7 targets week 1, but then, he reels in 8 of 13 for 92 last week. 2 weeks ago. 8 of 11 for 68 against Oregon. He was, my God, he was at 3.5 for his receiving over for receptions. What a dream that was. I got to think as Oregon gets into that Mountain West Conference play and he's dealing with the likes of, Colorado State and Nevada, and San Jose State, and, they're going to be able to put some points on the board, and you're going to have Trent Walker around. So he's only 1% owned. Deeper leagues, you can still get him.
Yeah, that's a great one to end on for sure. JD, who do you have to add to the list?
All right, let's see here. Skylar Bell from UConn. I figured I might not talk about a UConn player all year. Deep cut. He's got 22 targets in 3 games. He's a Wisconsin transfer. He went over the century mark twice already. And they need to play I don't know how to say his name, but the Fanano kid behind him. I think it's probably only a matter of time with how bad the other kids look in the Oklahoma transfer. So that kid hucking around a little more. I think he would even get some more volume once he steps in. Could be a target hog down the stretch when they're playing from behind. Ted Hurst, Georgia State. This guy has 52 fantasy points in his last 2 games. Kind of came out of nowhere. 18 targets in that span. Georgia State's offense not as terrible as I was expecting it to be. So, against Vanderbilt, you can laugh about it being against Vanderbilt, but the fact is we saw what they did to Virginia Tech's offense. So Fred Hurst might be a player. Not really a guy I had circled coming out of JUCO, but JUCO FCS, wherever he was at, but not a guy I had circled as a transfer. He had something like 500 yards last year, but someone I have circled now. That was impressive. Another one, I think he's owned decently, but I saw him available in a few of my leagues. Amari Kelly for Middle Tennessee State. Auburn transfer who erupts for 50 fantasy points in a pass-friendly system. You have to shout that out. And then last but not least, a guy that just came out of nowhere, and I noticed had 11 targets for Duke last week, Sean Brown, as a redshirt freshman, as someone to circle in deeper leagues and dynasty formats.
Yeah, that's good, man. I like those. You guys took all of mine, so I love it. Let's go on. I want to go on to running backs now, and hear who you guys got up as your top running back. So, Froton, why don't you lead us off on this one and give us your top running backs?
Yeah, the good thing about running backs is you have young guys that emerge from week to week that there's no way, you just don't get to see them. So there's no way you can really evaluate them beforehand. And then all of a sudden somebody gets hurt, an opportunity arises, and they come out and they pop. And I think at the very top of that list has to be Caden Durham, LSU. I mean, 11 carries, 98 yards, 2 touchdowns. And oh man, you watch him, and he, again, you can say it in a similar fashion that I kind of talked about Ryan Williams, in a way that just he's moving freely, smoothly, and everybody seems to be playing catch up to him. And he's running within his frame at all times. Like, he's always linear, and it shows because he effortlessly parries away tackles when guys don't have him completely squared up. Like, you see guys that are in a trailing position or coming from the side, and he's running, and he'll just take, one little side step and give a stiff arm, and he's by them, and he's not even thinking about them. It's just his lateral fluidity, his overall just smoothness, and how quickly he's, it when you see it. And with Caden Durham, you see it with him, and it's Josh Williams. I'm glad you're a team captain. Hey, buddy, move over. It's going to be Caleb Jackson and Caden Durham. That's the running back rotation. And as the season gets on, I understand how Durham doesn't get more carries. From a dynasty perspective, he's an A1 priority. Chris K already made an offer. I have him in the 20-team CFB winning edge league. Like a vulture, Chris K already trying to get him from me. Chris K, save your seniors. No, I will not be trading to you. That being said, I'll go Anderson, Castles in the Sand, Appalachian State. We talked about him here. We talked about him all summer about being, is it Yeezy or is it our boy Castles? Yep. And look no further. Castle just simply out carrying him, even though it was obviously a tough game against the Clemson defense. Dude, he was it. He got 5 catches, 17 carries. He has ascended to be the preferred option in that room. And with Appy hitting, Sun Belt Conference play, he's only 1% owned. If I'm reading this correctly, perhaps I'm wrong. It almost pops off the page. I'm looking at it, but I think that has to be exploited as well. And lastly, Christian Washington. Man, his time has come. 0% owned for Coastal Carolina, Braden Bennett. I don't know. What retread? You want to talk about retread? Braden Bennett. How long have we been talking about that guy being marginalized and taken over by superior running backs? Hard not to like what we're seeing out of Christian Washington last game for Coastal Carolina. Again, coming into Sun Belt play, there's a couple Sun Belt backs. And I'll hand it over to JD Yankee.
Yeah, one even additional note on Castle, why do I like him? Because I didn't really thought about him until you mentioned him. They played, obviously, Clemson is a very good defensive front. And then last week they played ECU, who actually I think is a super underrated defense, and they lead the country in tackles. So if you're getting decent production with great volume against those teams, we know App State is capable of a lot more. And yeah, if you watch that Clemson game, App State defensively, holy Toledo, they're getting worse on that side of the ball. And we know their offense is going to be decent. A few more guys I had written down. So Billy Lucas and Demi Sumo, we talked about. I'm glad because I had them as my 1 and 2. Zuberi Mobley for Florida Atlantic, 20 carries, above 34, 3 touchdowns. Now, is this going to continue? I'm not sure. But remember when homeboy was hired there. It's like, well, he's probably gonna have a good offense, but where is exactly gonna come from? We're not sure. This year going into the season, what are the pieces? Cam Thatcher, a quarterback, really? How are we replacing Webster at wide receiver? Nobody knows. So Mobley's a guy. I'm like, well, it could be Mobley, and then early on in the season, doesn't even look like he's the guy. They have what's his name, CJ Campbell, some other guy listed as RB1.
Florida State walk on.
I don't know about that anymore. I do think this offense is going to have someone who's going to get fed, and because there's almost never a lack of a fantasy asset in this offense under Herman, and I think it could be Mobley. So I'm at least going to take a few flyers, really cheap. Nobody owns him. Let's see what happens. Another guy, Razul Faison on Utah State. Yeah, Utah State's had quite the offseason and quite the season, but he's always kind of looked like a good player, but been sharing carries. You got Booth transferring over to Mississippi State. You have Briggs out for the season with an injury. Faison's there and went for over 100 yards against Utah. Might not stick out to people because he didn't get a touchdown, didn't catch passes, but you run for 100 on Utah with potentially a fourth-string quarterback and Royals and the slot kid, Rowan White, whatever last name he's choosing to go by right now. That's interesting. I think he's one who could slip under the radar. You could add him to fill out your rosters. And other than that, Trey Stewart for Jacksonville State. Yeah, I spent some draft capital on the running back room because, again, I love the offense, and looks like I might have whiffed. I don't know what happened to Andrew Paul. I saw him on my highlight when they were showing Vandegrift, right? His highlights from Georgia, not many of them, but throwing a touchdown pass to Andrew Paul. I said, I know that guy. Why don't I see him in a Jacksonville State uniform? I don't know. But Anwar Lewis only got one carry. This kid, Trey Stewart, stepped up and had 17. So it's looked like, and I know Rich Rod always changes his mind, but that was a pretty, you give one running back 17 carries, another one, and that's it. I'm gonna look at you because their matchups get a lot easier from here on out.
Yeah, those are good.
I love Russell Faison because my nickname for him, Ra's al Ghul Faison. I mean, it's right there. Liam Neeson's character, Batman Begins. It's all there. Ties it up with his daughter at the end, anyways, yeah. Christian Bale Batman. Loved it.
I love it. Hey, a little bit on Caden Durham. He's a guy that I just loved all offseason as a running back, freshman running back. In that game, he had 11 carries, 7 missed tackles forced on those 11 carries. And then he averaged 4.55 yards after contact per attempt, which, Froton, you mentioned that, right? When they couldn't square him up.
He was so
and
close.
I know. I mean, but these are the types of things. I'm not comparing him to this guy yet, but this is the type of stats that Ashton Genty was putting up last year as far as advanced stats with the missed tackles force and things like that. I mean, Caden Durham, 5'9", 205. He's small. He's compact. He ran a 10-500 meter. That was wind aided, a non-wind aided 10.33. I mean, like you said, he's running at a different speed. 10.8 is kind of that national elite time that you want to look for in running backs. And he blows that out of the water. I mean, he's basically Dylan Edwards speed, but 205 and just rocked up. I mean, the fact that those dudes are bouncing off of him like they were was pretty insane. And that South Carolina front is a good front too. I mean, it's not like this is a bad defensive line. So a couple other guys that I had as well. Kalel Mullings from Michigan. I think he's 15% owned, so a little bit higher.
Wow, it's weird to think of him at 15% owned. You don't even think of him. You're like, oh yeah, Kalel Mullings, of course.
Yeah,
dude.
Exactly.
I mean, I'm sorry. I've been badgering Bainbridge over him being better than Donovan Edwards all summer long. I've been needling Bainbridge about it, and he hates it. But he finally had to relent and admit that I was right last week. So that's all you need to know about Kalel Mullings. Sorry, carry on, Josh.
Oh, no, you're good. Another guy that's similar to that is Mekhi Bernard. I mean, he's only 17% owned in leagues in 2 straight 100-yard rushing games. So, again, these are guys that, just see if they're on your waiver wire. And if they are, then maybe pick them up. And the last one, I mean, part of the name, Marshmallow Fluff Bothwell. I mean, that's South Alabama. I know it was garbage time.
Thank you for Marshmallow Fluff. I appreciate it. You're getting into the game, buddy. Look at
Hey, this is just for you. Just for you.
Next thing you know, the English teacher, JD Yankee, is going to go over here and throw a punt at us. I don't know. Might get a little wild here.
Got to do it while I'm on here with my dad jokes. Can't pull those out with my kids. They'll make fun of me. But 7 carries last week for 143 yards and 2 touchdowns. And this kid, I mean, if you get a running back at the G5 level that's 215 pounds and just rocked up like he is, I mean, you got to take a shot on him. I mean, this kid looks really good. We thought Braylon McReynolds or, the other dude there, can't remember his name right now.
Bullock.
But Bullock, yeah, Kentrell Bullock. We knew that they were going to split, probably weren't great. Fluff looks like he's on a different level to me than them. I mean, he's averaging 10 yards a carry right now. I think it's only a matter of time before he takes over, and it might not be next week, but pick him up a week or two early. I think by week 6, October, he'll be the number 1 back, and I think he looks really good, in my opinion. You guys have any opinions on Fluff or any of those other guys I mentioned?
Just want to say I heard one of the national guys, I forget where, I listen to a lot of podcasts, but yeah, look out for Fluff Bothwell. He's the best running back they have. I'm like, I don't know, they got 2 good backs. There's no way that's true, right? I've never heard of this guy. And then immediately week 1, he's getting carries. Immediately week 2, he looks good again. Week 3, clearly looks like their best back. That kid's good.
Yeah. Oh man, he's so good.
He's Fluff and he's the stuff. Sorry, that's it. That's a wrestling reference for Buff Bagwell from the old WCW.
Oh, that's amazing.
Sorry.
I love it.
And he's the stuff. If he starts wearing a top hat, and after he scores on the sidelines after scoring a touchdown like Buff Bagwell, I will absolutely I will fly to the next game that they're at. I don't care where they're playing. I'm going there. I have the press pass. I'll be on the field. And I will be paying homage to Fluff.
I love it. All right, let's wrap up here with tight ends. You guys have any tight ends? I know last week, Froton, you had Tyler Neville. Dude looked good. I thought he looked good this last week. He didn't have the touchdowns.
Hell yeah. Calandria didn't look so great. He threw, I don't know, he did 2 touchdowns.
It looked like Calandria.
Oh, dude, it was bad Calandria. Week 3. You never know which kind of lottery you're gonna
get. Dude, that game, I had so many high hopes for that game.
Yeah.
And
golly. We're hoping. No, but actually, I think it went over.
Malachi Fields also had high hopes for Calandria. I mean, the looks that he was staring, like just a death stare at some of those throws that he sailed way out of bounds on Malachi Fields.
Calandria wasn't at his finest hour there. Props to they were bringing heat, and they covered extremely well in the secondary. Like they were leaving those guys out there, and they were able to stand up. Yeah, but still, we got our passing yards. Terrell Harris got his time. JD Yankee was proven to be sage in his wisdom and advice. Well done, JD.
That's awesome. All right. Any other tight ends for you guys this week that you guys would recommend it for these guys to pick up? JD, you got any?
Yeah, I'll tell you one that caught my eye, Mr. Book of Eli. Stowers.
Stowers, yeah.
I love it. Book of Eli.
Dude, he got 17 targets.
Yeah. This is a guy, he's obviously very athletic. Obviously been on the minds of some of us deeper cut CFF analysts for a while. And, a bunch of other SEC guys, SEC teams wanted this guy in the portal. It's like, well, did they? Or is that just something you're saying to fluff the kid up? You're getting 17 targets as a tight end. Maybe it's true. I mean, he's a little freaky out there, and I don't know where else they're throwing the ball. So thought I'd mention him. He's no Michael Trigg. But a good athlete.
There you go. One guy leaving the SEC, another one entering. So there we go. Proton, anybody else you got?
Jared wants to talk Eli Wilson, so we'll go double Eli there for Appalachian State. I already gave out Anderson Castles, so we'll do a 2-for-1 special over there in the Sun Belt. Absolutely. I feel like Eli Wilson, though, it was somebody who was getting drafted in the 15 to 20 round range, maybe 20 in our best balls, I want to say around round 20. So like I feel like he was getting drafted, or at least he was, aware of to some extent. But if he's out there, yeah, I think that's a very easy pickup, certainly, especially if he's under 20% ownership with Aguiar there. And then one deep cut, courtesy of CFF Insiders, our friend, Justin Heisey from the Industry CFB Dynasty League. I looked at his waiver wire article today. I want to give our boy Heisey a shout out. And he had Braden Lofton, Kansas State, who is somebody that I had watched in that game and been like, Jesus, look at this guy. It's like Gunnar Oakley, who? What's going on here? Like, that guy, he might have taken that job over. 4 target, 3 receptions, 45 yards, a TD against Arizona in a game where it's clearly a run script for them. They were in good shape. They were throwing, but they weren't pressing. That bodes well for the future and his future prospects. So give it up. Shout out to my boy Heisey.
There we go, Heisey. Oh, Bobby, we started off the show with you, and we might be ending it with you. Dropped Stowers in the 50-teamer on Friday.
Bobby,
pain.
You want pain? I have to admit it here. This is my final act. The final thing I'll say on the show is I have to admit it. I have to clean my soul. I dropped Veldkamp right before the week.
50-teamer?
The 50-teamer I dropped.
No! As you've been looking all week for a QB.
I've been begging for a QB everybody. Well, I had to pick up a QB. Caden Veldkamp isn't starting. Oh, Caden Veldkamp is starting.
Oh, man.
Because just so you know, you can only have 3 QBs on your roster. So, I had to play Keon Jenkins. I had, somebody on Van Dyke on bye, and then I had Veldkamp. So I'm like, I need Tyler Van Dyke.
Did you start Van Dyke, TBD?
No. I started with Jenkins.
That's how you knew the 290-yard stat line by Jenkins earlier.
Because I started him. And I'm starting this week if you don't freaking trade one to me, guys. That's the corner I paint myself in. I'm like, I'm always waiting on QB. But hey, I'm 2-1. I'm in good shape. Like, the rest of my team is good. It's that QB. Yeah. Look at Jared. Yeah, Jared.
Bob, you just made Bobby feel better.
Yeah, Bob. My tail of low, dude. The 50-teamer is no joke. It's dirty.
Oh man,
Proton, you said you're a Sorsby guy. I got Sorsby on my bench.
Oh, open Sorsby reference. Let's go.
I need to take a look.
Let's do it, dude.
There we go.
Well, I've already given away my bargaining position on Sorsby, haven't I? Well, he's entering Big 10, Big 12 play. So let's settle down in terms.
That's amazing.
Well,
Brett here has a final comment. He says, "Thanks, guys." Brett, appreciate you listening, man.
Always in the comments, nothing but love there. Always. Oh yeah, appreciate Shane. Shane, I have one update before I leave. Shane, buddy, are you still there?
He is. He's right here.
It's looking tenuous for NC State Clemson. So I little inside info, since I know there's no way they're listening to this. I put in for Clemson, and the guy in charge of the credentials, is kind of giving me a little pushback. He's kind of giving me, yeah, Shane knows. He was asking me for credentials. He was like, because I was like, hey, I was here last year. Remember me? Thanks a lot. That was great. He's like, oh yeah, you were here. Show me your work from what you did. I'm like, oh, all right. Well, 1, I don't want to send you anything gambling related. 2, that happened to be the game where I went with Stellato, and I did an interview with him that we ran on NBC Sports, whatever.com for his Italian American Hall of Fame induction, like that night where he went crazy. Stellato's, his big thing. So I interviewed him on the field for Clemson. So I was hoping to do another little piece there for NBC with him and his brother since Troy plays. But I heard back from him. I put it in last week for the thing. He got back to me in the morning. I got right back to him, and it went all day. He didn't get back to me. So I might be out of luck. I've already got a plane ticket booked to Atlanta. So what I did was,
Oh no,
I pivoted. I've got a secondary.
I'll answer
option.
for Shane.
Oh yeah. Oh no, I had to go with the secondary option. So I'm in Atlanta. Like, check this out. Tennessee is away. Georgia is on bye. Georgia Tech is away, and I'm flying into Atlanta, one of my best friends' houses, right? And Chris K. So I'm there, like everywhere in the vicinity. Like, there's nothing I can go to on Saturday. I already got the flight booked. I'm like, might as well just cancel the trip. I look over at Auburn, which it turns out is only an hour and a half away from Atlanta. I had no idea because I'm a Yank. Auburn is only an hour and a half away. Jordan-Hare Stadium is an hour and a half away from Atlanta. So I go and I look. Auburn, Arkansas, that shootout with Hank the Tank against Taylor Green. So I immediately go, go and put it in. Dude, Auburn approves me in 2 seconds. Minutes, they approve me. No BS, no hassle, Shane. Shane, I didn't get any hassle from Auburn. They want Froton. They want the college fantasy world to be represented at that. Admittedly, I mean, that's a better college fantasy game. Auburn versus Arkansas, I'm telling you, buddy. So, look, I'm hoping to see you at Clemson. But if that doesn't happen, I am ready to pivot. I'm ready to do a hard pivot and go right to Auburn, Arkansas, if that's what needs be. So, I know Auburn's overrated. Come on now, Shane. Come on, buddy. I want to go. Shane, they don't want me. Clemson doesn't want me. It's not that I don't want them. We'll see. It's to be determined, Shane. I will get in your DMs and I'll let you know. And everyone else, I guarantee you're going to see me at a game this weekend. I don't know which one. I will obviously have a play for you when I'm there. In fact, I'll probably talk to Josh and JD. We should have a family play ready for this weekend, guys. What do you think? Do we have a family play?
Yeah, we can do it for sure.
We'll pick one. We'll pick a late game because we have time. Because I don't like to do a play from the game I'm going to because it's too. Like, I'll have something beforehand, but like I don't like doing it from the game because it takes too long to upload sometimes, and people miss it. They get mad at me. I don't want people to get mad at me. So let's come up with one together. We'll grab Bruno Bainbridge, the English Bulldog owner himself. And we'll get a little family play that we'll do. Well, right? We'll have a little fun.
There we go. Let's do it. I'm always down.
Yeah. All right.
I think I figured out why Froton was hyping up Hank Brown. Now I think he was playing the long game here.
Oh, JD. You're like, Hank Brown. He's got Walker White, clicking down the deals. We're gonna take Hank Brown. Yeah, we're taking Hank Brown. We're doing it.
Froton's all about the narrative. I love it.
See what his prop is too. Might take him again. Might take it high. Might take low. I don't know what's going to happen. But I'm leaning towards an overscript in that game. I'm just going to say that much. I think we all
love it.
Probably, So
we need Taylor Green to go off this weekend.
I'm a bid for Hank Brown. I'm going to try to get some Hank Brown. We'll see how that all transpires. But anyways, yeah, that's my to tie up my tale of woe with Caden Camp, and then to give Shane the heads up that we'll see, guys. You'll see me from one of the fields. I don't know which one, but I'll be at one of them down south. So until then, do small things with great love. Oh, how's that, Josh?
Boom! Let's go. Let's get out of here. That's what?
Why are you shaking your head? You're welcome.